Hello everyone, it's been a long time since I've been on YouTube. I am back and I'm going to be consistently back on the first of every month for the next year, and then I'll reassess whether I can do it more regularly than once a month, but that's what I'm going to be doing for the next year, once a month, painting something that excites me. That's what I love about YouTube. I get to do whatever I would like, and hopefully that helps you guys. So today we're going to be capturing the essence of light. That's what I try and do in almost all my paintings actually, so it's not really a special subject in a way. But we're going to look at how we might go about doing that. And there are three key things that we really want to do when we go to capture light, I think. One is leaving some white of the page. The other thing is to make sure that we've got some values like some dark darks and some light lights. And then also for us to be thinking about the edges, the sharp edges and the soft edges, and how do we go about portraying them on the page. So let's get started. So all the paints, paper and brushes will be mentioned in the description below in case I don't mention things as I go along. The paper that I'm using today is Archer's cold pressed 300 GSM, 100% cotton, 9 by 12 inches. But you don't have to paint on this size. You could paint half this, or half again even. Sometimes it's quite nice when you're beginning to paint smaller with fairly large brushes, like with this size with like a 1-inch hake brush is a great way to go. So to begin with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the sky the subject. So I'm going to make the horizon pretty low, actually like about here. And I could pencil that in, but I'm not going to. I'm going to roughly just keep an eye on that. That's where my horizon's going to be. And you can have a look at the reference photo that I'm going to be using from Yamba from a while ago. And that's what I'm going to be using. So let's just wet the whole page with this is like a 2-inch Holbein hake brush from Japan. I love these hake brushes. They're not always easy to get hold of, but they're beautiful. So I just wet the whole page, and then I might flick my brush and then just take off any excess water. Excellent, and then we're good to go. And so to begin with, what I might do is I might just start to bring in the lighter colours. I am thinking so the horizon's going to be roughly here, and there's some light above the horizon sort of here. So this is where I'm thinking of trying to leave some white of the page, not right on the edge, but just in a bit, using that sort of thirds rule. Going to have some light here, there's also some light here, but let's just start with the mixture first. And I'm going to start with a largish brush, but you guys don't have to use a 2-inch brush. You could use something smaller. I'm going to get this mix of Cobalt Blue Light Red, and then I'm going to grab a little bit of the mix of Winsor Blue Red Shade and Light Red, just to take it into a darker, so this is quite a warm grey, and make it a bit darker. I'm going to grab a little bit of Payne's Grey as well, but again, you guys could just use simple mixes, and I'm going to grab a little bit of alizarin crimson too, just to warm it up ever so slightly. Excellent. So I'm going to come in with the lighter mixes first, and so there's some pretty decent sort of body of cloud coming down here. Bit of light, bit more down here. I'll get that here in a second. And then we've got some cloud formations coming in down here, right down to here, and a bit here. We'll leave some light there, we'll leave some light here. I might have gone a bit far, but we'll see. And then we're going to mix up a darker mix now. So we'll come in again with those similar colours. Payne's Grey, bit of alizarin crimson. Just grab with the corner of my brush, that'll do. And we're going to come in with the darks now that we can see are here, like dark, dark, dark. Not too exact, a little bit dark there, not heaps, and then I might just get a little bit of dark. It's not in the photo exactly, but a little bit of dark there would be interesting. And I might pop that brush down for a sec. I'll grab a 1-inch hake so that I can start to sort of feather some of these edges. So I could start to join some things. I've got to make sure I don't have too much water. If I have too much water, it'll just dump onto there. So I got some water on there, wiped it on the side, flicked it out a bit, so that it can start to move some things but not dump water everywhere. Because I kind of want a bit of a mid-tone here. I might come in with some even more darks in a bit, because this is kind of, and we can do the sea later. I could almost start to sort of work out where that's going to be, and I can get some light on that scene a bit. I'll just get that hair out just by doing that. Yes, excellent. Yes, I need a little bit darker. It's amazing how a good dark goes a long way, because that's how we make the light. So I'll come in here again with a darker dark again, and a little bit here, just so it balances the painting a bit. There we go. And the issue for me at the moment is there's not enough light just here. Where I wanted to leave, one of my key strategies of leaving light on the page is not happening at the moment. So I better do something about that. I'll get another hake, flick it out, grab a couple of tissues, and I'm just going to drag that across there, picking up some lights. Better wash it out again, flick it out again. And another way that I could do that actually is to grab a bit of a sponge, put in some fresh water, squeeze it out, and then bring it in here like this. I've dropped a few bits of water on there, that's bad. Make some nice marks, but probably not ideal. Yeah, you can see I just dropped water off my hands. That's all right, I can fix that up in a bit. So we're getting some light there, that's good, a bit of light. Nice. Nice, that'll do. Excellent. Now I've just got to fix up all where my water just dropped on there. A good way of doing that is grab that nice strong mix and come back in over the top a bit, and that will help it a bit to not create a, and there's a nice bit of light just there. Like, that's a hard thing to do without creating it too strong. So we don't want to take the eye off the page, but that is nice, that little bit of light. And again, I'm going to get a damp hake and just, I quite like that bit of light in the photo. Nice. I might just bring in a tiny bit. I've got to be careful not to, I'm going to spray a bit here and then just bring this in. So I just don't want quite as much light up the top there. I want that to be like that. There we go. And it's good to be standing back. Yeah, I might just use my tissue to just see if I can make it a certain interesting shape and just get a few edges, because that's kind of what's happening in the light, is that there's some interesting edges. We don't have to match things exactly. It's in the photo, but sometimes a photo is a good thing to just have as a guide. And I'm kind of leaving this. This is moving with, there's a fair bit of water on the page, and this is moving here, and the only thing I have to watch is that I want that to be quite a dark cloud coming down and not just graduating too much. So I've just got to make sure that when this comes, but what you don't want to do either is just play with it too much, because you can lose that beautiful freshness. And I think at the moment, that's pretty good. The thing I want to fix up here is up here a little bit. Just going to get a 1-inch hake squeezed out, and I'm just going to do a few edges here, and then I can come in with a tissue and just get a bit of an edge that comes down there. Got to be very careful with tissues. You can make some really sort of not ugly but not fantastic marks with a tissue sometimes. Yeah, I think that's pretty nice. That'll do anyway. The thing that would have been nice is a bit more variance here. See how this is like one big block, whereas I kind of like that in the photo there's different pieces of that. So anyway, I'm leaving that for now. I'll dry up around the edges before I dry this layer. I think that's pretty good. One thing that I think I might have done is slightly scratch the page just here with a brush when I was trying to kind of come up there. I think I might have used the wood a little bit accidentally to scratch that a little bit. Yeah, so that's the only thing. I kind of feel like there's a bit too many bodies of colour, and it would have been nice to probably have a little bit more, variance. But I would have got that by having a slightly less wet page. bit more control, a little bit less movement, but on the whole pretty nice. And we have some good armatures coming down here, taking the eye this way, another one this way, we'll have one coming in this way, we'll have the foreground coming up here, and then this is going to be our subject here. Yeah, nice. Just going to come down a bit here, just emulating a bit of that. And if I wanted to, but I don't have, I could do a little tiny bit of just, but again, you've got to be careful doing this. You can just really, just that light coming out, we could just, there is a tiny bit of that in the painting, but oh geez, yeah. Just gonna, yeah, I'm just gonna do that ever so slightly. Turning the tissue, just very lightly. All right, that'll just create, yeah, nice, all right. Okay, let's dry this and we'll move on to the next layer. So just before we do the next part, if you're having any issues in terms of capturing light, then just let me know in the comments below what sort of issues you're having, because I read all the comments, even if I don't reply to them, now that I'm back on YouTube. I can't say the same for the last year, but I will be reading all the comments and it will help me to help you to know what videos to make next. So just let me know what sort of issues you have. And also, if you would like to learn more about painting in watercolour in this way with hake brushes and loosely, right from the start, then I have a Watercolour Landscapes for Beginners course. The link's up here somewhere and in the description below. You can check that out. All right, let's move on. So I might just work out where the horizon's going to be, but just very lightly and loosely, because I want, I've almost not left myself quite enough room, because I kind of want the horizon to allow there to be some light above it. So the horizon kind of needs to be, wow, it's like so low. But anyway, let's just see. At least the subject will be the sky in a massive way. So we'll just cordon off that pencil area, and then we're going to have some sort of foreground coming in. And that foreground I want to sort of be coming in from an angle a bit, and there'll be some bit of detail there, and then it'll come down here. That'll do. This will disappear. We might do some more work there, but this will be our subject, a bit of detail. Super dark for this, mid-tone for this, more matching that. Yeah, probably could have shifted this whole lot up a bit. That's what happens when you don't plan, Scott, but I like not planning too much. Cool. So let's bring this in, and then we can bring this in over the top. We don't have to worry about painting it right to the edge, because this is a mid-tone, this is going to be super dark, so we can just bring that in across and not be too neat. And I might just cordon off this horizon. I'll use this 3M magic tape, but if you're using other papers you might not be able to do that. And I might just make sure that the tape, sorry if my head's in the way, I'm just going to make sure the tape is a tiny bit above that pencil line, because I don't really want that pencil line showing. So excellent. Press down nice and firmly on that area I'm going to paint, and I'll use a hake brush again, because I like them. You could use a sable, but I like hake brushes for mark making. So I'm going to make this ocean, it's got a bit of a green tinge to it, so we'll mix up a bit of a dark that matches the sky a bit. And then we'll bring in a little bit of Cobalt turquoise, just to green it off a little bit. Nice. And then we'll bring in some other ones. I'm going to do this dry brushing, but I of course could wet this a bit and then bring it in. And also I could just not tape that off, and I could even wet it so that I get a soft horizon, but I'm going to sort that out later. That's my plan. And there's a bit more green in the foreground, and then we'll darken off the background. So we'll just... Interesting marks. Let's just get a bit darker. Bit of Payne's grey. Match the sky a bit. Let's just get a bit of that darker. Let's get a little bit of the Cobalt turquoise. Just to charge an area a bit, just to give it a bit of interest. And there are some waves there, but I don't know if I'm going to be including them or not. Not really sure, to be honest. Let's grab another hake, just so I can just grab a bit of this mix to just do a few marks. That'll do. Beautiful. That'll do. I think I'll take this off and then we'll deal with what we've got going on. It's a little bit, obviously I knew this was going to be the case, but it's a bit of a sharp edge for a stormy sky. You don't get a sharp horizon on a stormy sky, so we have to do something about that. But I might do that last, when I come in and do a final sort of layer to sort of bring it all together. So you can see so far that we've left some white of the page here and here, but mostly here. This is where we're going to bring the eye to, but this helps us to come down. So we've left some white of the page. We've also got nice soft edges, and we're going to have some more crisp edges here. So that helps as well. And we've got some dark darks and light lights. That helps as well. All right, let's get a dark dark. Get a bit of Payne's grey. Get a little bit of alizarin crimson just to make it a bit interesting. Grab a bit of the Cobalt Blue light red mix. And if I had a nice thick mix of the Winsor Blue red shade light red, I would use that, but mine's a bit weak at the moment, so I'm just going to leave that alone. That'll do. This is the most important bit, and I'll come back in a bit, but I'm using a hacked up fan brush, one of my favourite brushes, to just do a bit of detail here. And I'll soften it off in a bit. I'm just going to do a little bit of, look at that picture, but also just look at the, and it's good to make sure your brush is fully loaded. You don't want sort of like weak marks. You kind of want to make sure that your marks are nice and full of pigment. That'll do for now. Let's just grab a bit of that on a hake brush. Let's just, I want to leave a little bit of that white. So I'm not bringing the foreground in like it is in the photo all the way down to the side, because I just feel like it doesn't help to make it interesting, I think. Let's get a little bit of green from somewhere. I don't even know what green that is, but I think it might be hookers. Bit of green. Not as a full-on green, but just as a... So sometimes what's good to do at this stage is to take it away, put it up somewhere and stand right back from it, so you can start to get more of an idea of what the values are doing, because that's important. So I might just do that quickly, and then it'll help me to know what to do next. So I'm going to dry all this thoroughly, and then we're going to come in and do the final layer that brings it all together. So if you're following along to this, you do not need to do this last layer. This last layer is probably pretty technically a bit difficult, but I like to try and produce a piece that I feel is cohesive. At the moment I don't feel like this is, so let's see how we go doing that. So I'm just mixing up a nice dark dark for the sky, okay? Going to have some brushes ready, at the ready, because this is going to be a bit fast and furious. And so what I'm thinking is, is that I might get rid of some of this white here. I might do that before I start bringing everything else in. Get rid of this a bit, even get rid of some of these a bit, so that I like to pare it back to pure parts or essence of light, which is this, and then light on the water here. And this light on the water won't pop if there's no dark next to it, so I need to darken this off a bit, really, even if it's not in the photo. I'm going to darken that off a bit, get rid of this light. I'll scratch out a light at the end last, and I'm also going to diffuse this horizon and bring in a little bit more dark and layers. We'll see how that all goes. And the only problem with doing this is it might just lose some of that lovely freshness, but it's worth just taking the risk sometimes. I'm just going to This might initially will look a bit rubbish, okay, but then we'll deal with that. Now let's go. Let's get this dark. Let's start spraying everywhere, all over, and we're just going to come in with a bit of a darker dark. We're going to, oh, that was a bad idea. When I say everywhere, I mean everywhere but this area just here. Let's just wipe that out for a second. There we go, that'll do. Right, let's come in here, a bit of dark across here. We'll do a dark bit there. We'll come in here, a bit of dark here. Let's get that on a brush. We'll get a 1-inch hake just to get a dark. This and just. Alright, let's just help this to be nice and dark here. Excellent. You can tell me at the end whether you think this was a mistake or not. Let's flick that out, we don't want to apply too much water. Rinse, flick. Just want to dampen that edge for a second here. Excellent. Nice. Right, let's just get a bit of dark. Any brush will do, we'll just get a bit of dark in there. So we can have some definition. Excellent. Get some light coming down here. We'll get some dark. And we'll scratch back a light in a bit. You'll scratch back a light in a bit. I think I quite like that. So for some people it'll be a bit too dark, a bit too moody, but I quite like that. Nice. All right. Just get a little bit of light coming down here. And then do the dark. We want to get the light. Just trying to lift out. It's just quite hard to manage the movement of water and pigment. Oh, that's a bit funny angle for light, isn't it? I'm playing a bit too much now. All right, let's just leave that for now. Otherwise I'll just spoil that. Excellent. Right, let's dry this and then we'll do the last bit, which will be a light on the water. Let's just dry it. So you can see here at the moment, this paper, I don't want to touch it with any, in case I spoil it, but it's very risen up. And so if you don't like that at all, you will have to stretch your paper. I'm sure I've got a lesson on that somewhere, but you have to stretch it. Otherwise it does this, but I don't really mind. I work with it. I like being able to work quickly and easily. All right, let's dry. So one thing you really need to be careful of when you go to scratch out a light is that you've dried the page completely. If the page is still damp in any way, you'll start just ripping off big chunks of paper rather than having any level of control, and it might all not work out well for you. So make sure it's nice and dry before you go to scratch out a light. You don't have to scratch out a light. You can do this in lots of different ways. You could add some white, you could put some masking fluid on at the start if you have a plan, that sort of thing. But I like being able to scratch out a light, so that's what we're going to do. We've got a razor blade here, Stanley razor blade, and I'm just going to work out where. I'm going to have it, whether it's on the photo or not, I'm going to have it just below the horizon so that the light's coming through and hitting a patch of the ocean there. And so I think just, and again, I better make sure that it's in line with the horizon and then down a bit. If I wanted to, I could come in from the top part, and I'll make sure my head's not in the way. I could come in from the top part and do a bit of a, the beginnings of it, just here, just with the tip. And then that would give me a guide as to where I'm going to bring the ruler in when I'm coming from the bottom. Just going to go back and forth with it at an angle, come out to that way a bit. And I'm just going to freehand a bit. I don't want to do too much because I want that to be a very distinct patch of light. And I might just come in a bit here and just get rid of that. All right, let's stand back and have a bit of a look. I think I'm just going to bring in a little bit more sparkle down into here. Just darken off at the top here. So I think I like that, but I also think this painting could work without any light on here, because then the subject would be here as a larger subject rather than a subject being that piece of light there, which looks a little bit contrived. You let me know in the comments what you think, whether you think this painting would work without that, with or without that. I'm not really sure right now, because by making that the subject, if I took that away, it makes this whole sky the subject. And then this more the subject, which could work actually. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson where we've tried to capture the essence of light on water in a sublime sort of way, sublime landscapes where, we are minuscule in comparison to the size of nature, and that's what this painting does quite well. I'm still not sure whether I'll take this out completely at some stage, but I think that the thing that this painting does do well is that we've left some white of the page. That works well. We've got some dark darks and some light lights. That works well as well. That helps to make the painting pop. And we've also got nice soft edges and then some hard edges here, some crisp edges here, soft edges here. Again, it helps the eye to come to here, and I think makes a pleasing painting and composition. If you like this video, then please press like. If you want to know about future videos and get notifications, then press the subscribe button and press the bell button for all notifications. And I will see you next month in my next painting. All right, see you then. Bye for now.